Welcome to the InPower Coffee Break. Every Tuesday at 1 o'clock for half an hour, we have a meeting here with you and whatever your favorite beverage is. For me, it's iced tea today. And we talk about things of interest to us in creating the workplace we all want to work in and working in the workplace we all want to work in and being the people that we want to be in the workplace we want to work in. I'm Dana Theus, founder and president and CEO of InPower Coaching and InPower Women, and I'm here with Mary Schaefer and Mary Brody, and we are going to talk about how working in an office can be like being in a reality TV show. And we don't, in true form, we did not script this. We don't have any talking points. We are going to just talk about the relationship between reality and something that's a little absurd sometimes, because sometimes being in the office, being in a work situation can feel unreal. It can feel like you're, like, what's going on here? You have to go a rock around the block to get a little clear. And what's really going on there? Now, I'm going to invite Mary and Mary here to give their views on this. But just to start, I'll say we do have an open seat. We'd love to have you join us. We'd love to have you join us via the video open seat or via the chat box here on the side. And what is your take on reality TV shows? What is your take on how the office environment can be like a reality TV show or not? And I'm just going to open it up with my own perspective. I've never watched a reality TV show because I don't find them as interesting as the constructed realities that are trying to make a point. I guess I'm more art focused. But one could argue that many reality TV shows aren't very real either. Mm-hmm. So let me ask Mary and Mary to share their experience with reality TV, and then let's dive into the connections between what we call reality TV and our working environments. Mary Schaefer, why don't you start? How do you come at the subject?
Yeah, sure. Like you, Dana, I can't think of one reality TV show that I have watched all the way through, at least, unless I like criminal shows, like true crime type stuff. But like the Real Housewives, Real World, Jersey Shore, that kind of thing. The Amazing Race, Survivor, doesn't really interest me.
At least you know the names. I don't even know the names. Is The Bachelor a reality TV show? I'm just showing my ignorance.
What is it?
The Bachelor.
The Bachelor is, yeah. Boy, and I know somebody who knows that story, and, that's so not real. We already knew that. Anyway, this topic came up when Mary Brody and I were talking about just, what we could do for different topics. And I told her I had written a post about how being in management is like being in the cast of the Jersey Shore, given what little I knew about the Jersey Shore, but that was so popular at the time I wrote it. And the bottom line is, the parallel I see is that you're living in a contrived environment where you think you're the center of the universe. And I found that so equivalent to management. By the time I left my corporate job, I say sometimes I left it with my sanity intact, because the priorities, things that were put as a priority, seemed ridiculous to me. And we have to do this to make so-and-so happy. Why? Because so-and-so is who, and how did they earn that right to demand that and that kind of thing? And that's what I mean about contrived. I had a hard time cooperating with that. And so Mary was intrigued by the thought of reality shows, comparing that to the workplace. And so, Mary, I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, why are we having this conversation, Mary?
Well, I thought it was interesting because, when you see reality shows, it's like what you're both saying. It's a contrived environment a lot of times, and you don't realize a lot that work can be that way. Right? Work can be like a reality show. Watching these reality shows, the drama. And I think that's another key factor, right? The high drama you can get, the interpersonal interactions that get so ridiculous. I think this is why there's always the attraction of reality TV, because people watch those interactions and they see them in their real life. Like you think, oh, it's just TV. No. no. These do happen. These misunderstandings and these other things. You know, and I do know, like in work situations, people will contrive situations to get their way, to get a program through, to make things happen. Let people, you know, you often hear, we were talking about this earlier, you often hear at work, oh, we'll just let them think.
Let them think it's their idea.
Yeah, we'll let them do, and everybody agrees, and they go into the meeting, and you just made a reality show. Like, you're just going to do what it takes to get what you want. And that's what they kind of do in those shows. And they think it's real, you know, but does it hurt them? Like, you know.
So actually, this is giving me some insight into why I've never been attracted to reality TV and why I left the corporate environment. Like you said, Mary, actually all three of us in some way have intentionally left those kind of crazy environments because, you know, I made a decision a long time ago that for me, reducing drama in my life, and this goes before, you know, work, like in my home life with my family, I'm like, reducing drama is my mission in life because it gets in the way of me living the life I want to live. And so I am not attracted to the effort to make drama. But that is a really intentional choice. I think a lot of us accept that there's going to be drama. And so we just live with it the way it is. And to your point, I think maybe reality TV shows help us feel like we're not alone. We're not the only ones. We can see it through a lens that allows us to kind of put it in the little box of our TV, maybe the big box if we have a big TV. And it's like cathartic, I guess, in that way. And that'll help us go back and deal with the drama in our work situation or our family situation more easily. Is that what's going on, you think?
Well, you know, Dana, you just made me think. I remember a friend of mine got into the show Honey Boo Boo. And if you knew her, you would be like, how did this happen? And she said, I confess, it makes me feel better about my life. And, you know, I don't know if that's going on. Again, that's somewhat of a contrived environment, but that could be an attraction to it. And then we were also talking about, you know, you were talking about drama, Dana. We were talking about, as we were getting started, I said I couldn't watch The Office, even though it was clearly scripted TV and, you know, had a certain intention, but it was too real to me. Because, you know, I was living it every day at work and it was just too familiar. And so I couldn't even watch that. And so, you know, I'm wondering now, is it really the difference between reality and scripted, or, you know, really just what is triggering in us, you know?
I think that's a really important question because I had the same experience with The Office. I was telling you guys earlier. I used to watch it. I watched the English version, and I would watch it right before I went to bed. And I remember I was loving it for about 5 shows. And then I realized I was going to bed sad. I was going to bed depressed. I was like, I don't want to go to bed like that. And it was exactly what you're saying, which is, yes, this is a farce, but I have seen almost all of this, you know, that contrivance, that, you know, trying to get what you want and hurting people in the process and being mean and getting away with it. Mm-hmm. And I was just sort of like, well, that's not what I want to make my reality. So I stopped watching the show, which is really sad because I was really thought it was funny.
Right. But it really wasn't entertaining.
It was entertaining in a dark sort of way.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back to this idea of office drama for a minute. Because and Mary Brody, you wrote a post, not about this exactly, but it made me think about this. You recently wrote a post about how to keep your edge, right? Yeah. Because a lot of times we get into our work environment and our team, you know, and we interface with X number of people and we're all very focused on our tasks and our objectives. And we kind of forget that the rest of the world is there, or maybe we don't forget, but we don't invest any energy because it feels like the job we have and that site takes everything we have. And so there's none of us left to go deal with what's in the news or brush up on our skills. or, even invest in good relationships or take care of ourselves. It just sucks everything out of us. And we have to put that aside. We have to maintain our perspective. We have to go into other environments, go to a conference, go online and take a course, go deal with people who are sane. If you feel like you're working with people who are insane, you have to take the action to do that, or you get caught in the reality show. And going back to the TV analogy, I think that's one of the reasons that it's so entertaining, is because people are getting caught up in that reality and they're losing perspective. And watching somebody else lose perspective makes us feel like we have perspective, like your friend watching Honey Boo Boo. And sometimes, we can't watch a show to gain perspective. We have to go get it ourselves. And Mary Brody, your post on that was, I thought, brilliant. Do you want to, when did you learn that lesson that you couldn't get sucked into the reality TV show? And you had to maintain
at work?
Perspective. At work, yes.
Work? To learn it to stay sane. This is why I originally went out on my own to have my own business in the first place. All that drama, I just couldn't take it. And you just can't take it seriously. I think the day that I realized how ridiculous it was, and this is kind of a weird story, but I was working at this online travel company. I was an employee. I wasn't a consultant. I was an employee, and I was working in the creative team, and we had this creative director, and he was kind of crazy, and or at least that was my perception. Other people did too. And so anyway, somebody was leaving. I went to the adios party, and we're sitting around, joking around. And so the creative director walks in, and then something comes up in conversation, and he says to me, "Well, I was trying to fire you," and I could feel that he was trying to fire me because he had this. Yeah, he said this to me. Because he had this modus operandi that every new company he went in, he took the 2 strongest employees in that team and got rid of them so he could implement his will.
Oh my gosh.
That was his strategy, right? So we find this out, like the other guy that he wanted to get rid of we figured this out. And so we stood strong and found a way around this, right? Anyway, so he tells me this and I started laughing. This is when I realized the drama is just really so it's TV, right? So I started laughing and he goes, "What's so funny?" And I'm like, "Well, because I would have had a lot of fun, going after the company legally for mental and emotional abuse." And he goes, "Well, why would you do that?" I go, "Because I just got I got a raise and a bonus when I wasn't supposed to because I was a new employee, and I got an award. So you commend me just 6 months earlier, and now you're saying you want to fire me." I'm like, "Lawsuit. This is really funny, actually. This really entertains me." And that's when I started realizing you can't take it. You can't take this stuff seriously. I haven't had such ridiculousness since, but
it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. And I've seen other situations that you're just you think we're all aligned, right? You go in, we're all aligned, right? We're all aligned. Great. And then someone says something that goes to their own self-interest, and you're like, "What? We were aligned."
Yeah.
And you're gonna laugh, or else you're gonna go
So what is it that allows this to happen? Because one of the things that I've noticed is that people will sometimes behave in the office environment in a way they would never behave with their friends, right?
Wow. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's would that guy have said to his wife, "Yeah, I'm trying to fire you. I'm really trying to divorce you"? Maybe if it got that bad, but probably not. Or to his friends. I just, we allow behavior that is so poor in the workplace sometimes in the name of the mission, getting results, and it's all just, in my mind, an excuse. But we all buy into it, right? we all creating a culture that allows that to happen. Mary Schaefer, I'm going to throw this one at you because you've seen it from the HR perspective and from the kind of, there's one thing about being in an office out in the field somewhere. It's another thing being in corporate or a corporate function and seeing this kind of dysfunction. What do you think allows this to happen unchecked sometimes?
Actually, it's very related to my Jersey Shore post. It came up recently. I referred to it on a lead change post I did the other day, it was titled something like, "How did that person get that job?"
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was great.
And employees would often walk into my office, like when certain people got promoted, and say that to me. How did that person possibly get that job? Like they're not qualified, or they're drama queens, or they don't get things done, or, you know, they're manipulative. And I don't know if I said this to them, but at least in my head, my answer was, because they're willing to. Okay.
What does that mean?
And what that means is, I believe for some organizations, like the longer they've been around, and, you know, you've heard probably corporations, if you typed them, they would be a sociopath. Okay. And certainly high-level executives have narcissistic traits. And, you know, that data is out there. And so, at least in my experience, I myself one reason I chose to leave. I knew I could get promoted, but I didn't want to work with the people at that next level, because, you know, either they were so hard to work with, or drama queens, or manipulative, or uncooperative among each other. And the higher it went, like the crazier it got. And so what I meant by they're willing to is, me, sane, smart person, is not willing to put myself in that drama, but this person is. And unfortunately, what that can get us is a whole group of people at one level that are dysfunctional. That's my observation.
Mary Brody, do you have any insight onto that? I think, Mary Schaefer, you did justice to that.
Yeah, absolutely right. I have asked that of many people, like, how did they get there? And I get different types of answers, but are you willing to do it is the answer. Are they willing to take on the madness and the craziness? Mm-hmm. And they have certain views of themselves, some of these individuals, that you just go, really? Wow. How do you live? Like, it's what, sometimes I look at people. How do you live? Okay.
Well, and you know, that part of what you're saying there is you're willing to take that on. The other is you're willing to be that person who can survive and thrive in that situation.
And I think can.
Yes.
Oh yeah, plenty of people can, and plenty of people will look at people like us who say we don't want to do that, and they say you're nuts. You know, like, you could be king of the hill, you could have a corner office, you could, you know, have all these great things, and we're kind of saying, the three of us here are saying, well, that's not as important to us as other things. And it's important for us to realize that, you know, the world needs people in charge to run, and that doesn't mean that justifies them having poor behavior, but somebody needs to be willing to. And actually, this opens the door for me about the women's leadership topic that sometimes comes up that I think is challenging. I just noticed we had someone who asked to join. Why don't we let them in? I'll say this regarding women's leadership, and then we'll see what he wants to say. But, you know, a lot of women will say to me, in the context of, you know, trying to get into leadership, you know, some women will say, well, I just don't want to play that office politics game. And, you know, part of me is thinking, what you're saying is, you don't think you can win this game. And some of it may be what we're saying, which is we really don't want to play that game. And some of it is, I think it's rigged against me, because that office politics game happens in the men's room and on the golf course, and, you know, lots of different reasons. And sometimes it's just office politics that we don't know how to read. And I'm always careful to advise them and myself when I'm in those situations, because I get in those situations with clients too, is that office politics is another way of saying the way humans react and interact.
Yes.
And so you can't just say, I'm not going to play office politics, because that's unrealistic. That's how people relate.
Yes.
And so you really have to find that balance. And if you're playing the game to the best of your ability, because that's how people relate, and you get to that point where you're like, okay, now I know how to succeed and I don't want to do it, that's when, in my mind, you can say, I don't want to play that kind of office politics. Mm-hmm. But don't do yourself the disservice of just saying, I'm not going to engage in that, because you're engaging in it in your own way, which is calling them all idiots and you're great. And now you're just part of that problem when people need something from you. So I think there are two sides to that. Mm-hmm. And as easy as it is to sit here and say, oh, it's all like The Office, you know, it really isn't. Right. We're part of that system too. And we have to take responsibility for dealing with it enough to get done what we have to get done. Was it Khalid joining us? Did he make it in?
He didn't ask to join. I didn't see any requests to join the conversation in the
okay.
box. Yeah.
Well, Khalid, if you have anything you'd like to say either in video or in the box, we'd love to hear it. Everybody has some interesting experiences with office politics for sure.
And Dana, to that point, when I have clients that say, I don't want to play politics, I always ask them to define what that means, and give me examples, because to your point, it's human nature, period. And then there's a point where it feels like you're eroding your integrity.
Right. Mary?
Yeah, I wonder, because I went through this at one point, do I want the corporate thing or do I want to do my own thing? And it was the whole, is it worth it? Because I'd see what I'd personally have to do and go through, because I just don't really work that way. So it'd be a little contrived. I'd have to learn how to do it. And that's where I found what I would have to play and what I'd have to do. I don't know if it would be worth what I would want to do. Is this, or could I get success in a different way? How do I want to do this? That's when I realized that's when I started realizing I like having clients, because it's nice to have that boundary, right? You don't,
yes.
When it comes to a certain point, it's quite challenging to be if you're in the employee side, because you have to address everything versus being in the client side. There's a point you can walk away.
Right. Yeah. And I'll be really honest, for many years when I was on my own as a contractor, I really didn't want to have to hire other contractors. I'd bring a subcontractor in for one or two things, but I was like, I am not building a company. I am not, because I did not want the responsibility to not recreate the office. And so what I found is that when I did decide to build a company, which I'm doing now, I had to get over all that. I had to decide to take responsibility for building an environment that might be a little drama-y someday. And that meant I had to take on the responsibility for doing what I could as a leader to make sure that didn't happen. Mm-hmm. And so let's bring it back to end this discussion. If you're in an environment that's a little dramatic, or you are building an environment you don't want to become dramatic, what can you do as a leader to take some of the reality show out of it, particularly if you're just running a team and you've got the company around you? I think that's the hardest thing to do is, how can I run my team in integrity when I've got these nut jobs, all around me sometimes. And that comes at all levels, right? Where you only have two people reporting to you, all the way up to when you're running a division. What wisdom do you guys have on that one?
I have a story.
Okay.
So Mary, I don't know if you want to go first.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So a friend of mine had a company, and it came down to the people, right? And who you hire. That's what I noticed. It's all about the people. So she hired this one guy who, come to find out, he was kind of, it's kind of a snake in the grass. And so he pitted her, I was subcontracting a project from her. He was pitting her against me. I was going to try to take everything over. I'm like, we've been friends for years. Why would I do this? Right? We'd have conversations for hours. She convinced her to the point she believed him. Her husband believed him. He started spreading stuff even in the office about all the different people and their relationship. Come to find out towards the end, he was holding 2 full-time jobs for her and for someone else who was working from home. It was insane, right? He ended up causing so much drama, she had to close the company.
Oh my.
Wow.
And couldn't revitalize the company, had to just kill it once and for all. Yes. And that's the lesson. I talked to her about it. What'd you get out of this? Cause I was like, this is just bizarre. I just kept telling her, this is bizarre. And I think she only hired one of the people from that team. Everyone else had to go. And it came down to the people. And if you have just one squirrely person, that will do it. It's the whole, if you have a team and someone leaves and they're your problem child, it's almost the whole addition by subtraction. It really is the people. And I don't know if there's a way you guys would know to find to avoid these squirrely people, these sociopaths, cuckoos, who are out there, because they do it. You have people with quirks and you can deal with that, but this is beyond quirk.
Right.
Like this is like you're wired wrong. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah.
You're wired wrong.
And the good ones, meaning the really sociopathic ones, they make you doubt yourself.
Right.
So that you're thinking, well, it's got to be them because they're so confident and they're so this.
Right.
Which is all another reason for InPower, because when you're empowered and centered in your own power, you don't get fooled as often.
Right.
Mary Schaefer, what do you think of that? That's an awful story.
What occurs to me is a situation I ran into, and I would try as hard as I could to treat people like adults, even when they weren't acting that way. And I had a woman come to me, like sometimes it was so much like high school. I felt like a high school principal. I had a woman come to me. She and her former best friend shared a cubicle space together. And if you notice, I use the word former. And so like she was claiming that the other woman was picking on her. Like she would move stuff on her desk and, mess with her files and stuff like that. And now this woman was the popular girl. Okay. I did an investigation, and the other woman, people scapegoated a lot. Now, granted, she was an unpleasant personality, but I was not going to let people scapegoat her. Okay. And I believe she might have done some of that, but I could find no evidence to take action on it. And so here's what I told both of them is I can't find any evidence around this. And knowing that she was being scapegoated, I told both of them, if either one of you come back to me within the next few months and complain about the other, I am moving both of you. Not just the one you're complaining about, but both of you, to put the other woman on the hook. And strangely enough, she came back to me a month later, started complaining about the other woman. I said, you remember the rules I laid down? I didn't think you were serious. Well, now you know. And
did you move them?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Did it help?
I did. And, it sent a message to everybody. Be an adult. Yeah. There are consequences to your actions. You just can't complain about the scapegoat and expect them to get punished. This isn't your playground. Mm-hmm. You're responsible for getting along with that person, even if you aren't best friends anymore. And so that was one of the highlights of my career, actually, because I felt good about the way I managed that. And after they moved, everything was much better.
There's another aspect to this, which kind of speaks to our triggers, and a lot of what's happening in these crazy situations and dramatic situations, that it feels contrived because we get triggered. And it's like we're not being our best selves. So it's like, everything conspired to make us be this way or make them be that way, et cetera. And I don't want to say this is the solution by any means, but going back to what can you do as a leader is, you can understand that a lot of reason people act out like children, right? The reason they're not being like adults comes down to a really simple thing. They're getting triggered. They're not feeling heard. They're not feeling respected. They're not feeling valued. And this is their way of trying to get attention. So yes. As I say it out loud, it sounds a lot like, adults and children.
Yes.
But in some ways, that's exactly what's going on. And when you're in a leadership position, whether you're leading that team or whether you're, in HR or you're in the corporate seat, remembering to be the adult and treating others as adults and giving them the opportunity to step up to that and giving them the information to feel valued, to feel respected. It doesn't solve it, but it goes a long way. And along with that is not tolerating, to the extent you as a leader can shut it down, not tolerating other people triggering everybody around them by making them feel not valued, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So going back to Mary Brody's story, obviously that bad seed pitting everybody against each other, someone should have figured that out and let them go early on or box them in some way. And nobody did. Now, arguably it would be the leader that would have to do that, right? Someone at peer level can't fire them. So, the leader does maintain responsibility to be the adult, to treat other people with respect and ask that everyone around do that as well or leave. And that's a hard job. That's a really hard job, especially when you're trying to, get results out the door, right? And I think that's where, going back to why we sometimes tolerate this and have such bad behavior in the offices, we're willing to excuse all that crap if we can meet this quarter's numbers or if we can do these things. And as the three of us have discussed many times on the show, ultimately your numbers suffer. Mary Brody's friend had to shut her business down. This toxic environment takes its toll on the business in one way or another at one time or another. So you really do have to step up to the hard work of doing both. And that doesn't sound like a really up note to finish this on, does it?
Well, to give you an up note of the guy, the creative director that I shared that story in the beginning,
yeah,
he did finally get fired. Come to find out he was doing all sorts of nonsense, needless to say, right? Management did take note. They did record, and they kicked him out.
Did he leave before you did?
No, after. I left first, and then there were other people who left too. So that was part of the case of why you got to go, bud.
There's the toll on the business right there.
It was expensive. It was very expensive for them. So you're right. And I think sometimes though people do find it before it gets too out of hand. It's the shock,
mm-hmm.
that someone can be that way. Like, really?
To that point, Dana, it's important to be vigilant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's not something you can just do and then ignore it for a while, because somehow it seeps back in, right? Well, okay, we've as the car talk people say, wasted another perfectly good half hour on this topic. But I really like this lens of coming at toxic environments and comparing it to kind of the contrivance of entertainment in a reality TV show. That the parallel is all too close. So thank you both, Mary and Mary, for joining me in this conversation. It was really good. We'll invite everybody watching or listening to join us every Tuesday at 1 o'clock. You can go to coffeebreak.InPowerCoaching.com and see what's coming up in the future. Watch older recordings. We hope to be putting this on podcast soon. So make sure to sign up for the reminders so you learn all about it, and you can follow us there. Take care, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.